Call to order the City of Saugatuck City Council Workshop Meeting for December 4th, 2024. Will the clerk call the roll?
Anderson,
Here?
Clark,
Here.
Dean,
Here.
Gardner,
Here.
Muncy,
Here.
Peterson,
Here.
Stanton.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Any agenda changes for today? Okay. Any guest speakers, Jamie? Okay. Moving to then public comment on agenda items only. I don't think there's anyone in the room. Anyone on Zoom? Right. Well, that will take us to discussion items. Ryan, you want to walk us through 6A?
Yeah, certainly, Mayor. So I think everyone's probably aware that we received a pretty substantial grant from Eagle in the amount of about $250,000 to complete a final distribution systems materials inventory, which essentially was a requirement that we take a look at a sample of suspected lead service lines in the city and check them at various points to confirm whether or not they are in fact lead. Because there's a lead and copper rule that the state has enacted that requires by 2040 that we replace all of those lead service lines. So the contract for that work went to Compton Inc. They've been hard at work this fall, as I'm sure you are well aware, and kind of looking around town and verifying lead service lines in homes. We've asked for folks to kind of help us out with that as well on a voluntary basis by sending us photos of the lines coming into their homes, but then they've also been potholing. So that includes sometimes work in the road, sometimes sidewalks, and then on different other pieces of the property as well. So the good thing is that that work has been going very well. Compton's not done with it yet, but we were able to get an initial report to Eagle timely and report where we're at and what we found so far. But with the work that's been completed to date, we do have some remaining dollars, and we can actually do some additional curb stops and additional confirmations, which is good. At the same time, the contract that we have with Compton doesn't really kind of account for potholing into frozen ground and dealing with that. So our engineers have worked with them to propose a change order that would extend the agreement into the spring and have the additional verifications done by April 1st. We can get this additional work done for actually a reduction of cost in regards to our agreement with Compton. It'd be about $10,000 less, but then we're going to have some more work on the engineering side and monitoring and preparing all the documents. So it's going to really be offset, but all of it's still, again, covered under the grant agreement and reimbursable. So I don't know how many of you have met Peter, but Peter is on through Felicia Vandenbrink and works really closely with John Moxie, who you're all familiar with. Peter, did you have anything you might want to add on?
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Yeah, like Ryan said, I work closely with John. I've worked on several projects.
Just 1 second, Peter. We
actually.
got to turn up your audio a little bit.
Oh. Uh-oh.
All right. Go ahead, Peter. Try.
Oh, you can hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
There we go. Yep, you're good.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Ryan. And like you said, I've worked closely with John on a number of projects actually within the city. I don't know if I've been able to get in front of council yet, so hello. But yeah, Ryan, you did a really great job of summarizing what we're kind of looking at here with this project. I think big picture, we're right on track with Eagle. We're able to, like you said, pothole additional locations, which will really get us on track to get us a good understanding of what is out there within the city and make some pretty accurate estimates moving forward about what we need to do to replace these moving forward. So we're still aiming to complete this project by April 1st, which would obviously keep us out of the busy season. I know it becomes like Disney World once you get much beyond there. So we're hoping to get out of your way before that happens. So hopefully picking up in February or March, depending on, of course, how the weather goes. Looks like we have a winter advisory coming in right now, so I don't think it's going to be anytime soon. But whenever there is an opening, Compton's good to come out, even if it's just a week. If we get a 40-degree week or something, to come out and keep moving the ball forward. So But we're still aiming to finish by April 1, and we'll just wait on the restoration. The remaining locations wouldn't be in any roadways, so as far as traffic control, it shouldn't have much impact there. So the impact should be relatively minor.
Great. Questions or comments?
I don't see it in here, but it may be in here. What was the number of confirmed lead lines that we submitted on October 16th? Do you have that, or did you ask for more time?
I can pull that up for what we submitted here, if you give me 1 second here. We mostly found galvanized lines. There's not a lot of, per se, lead.
Right.
But let me pull this up right here, if you'll bear with me 1 second.
And while he's pulling that up, and this is maybe a good time to touch on this. So all of the findings that we eventually, have, we will be kind of working on, posting that on the website and making that, very much available to everyone as well.
Yeah. But the rule does require galvanized connected to lead to also be replaced, so.
Right now, we are at 103 that we've seen as galvanized previously connected to lead.
Galvanized, so it's 103. And then, how many copper? Do you have that? Is it on the same
Yeah,
sheet?
we have 366 right now, so we're looking at a lot more copper than galvanized, which is obviously encouraging to see. And we're hoping that with the remaining unknowns, even after this project, we're able to kind of extrapolate out. All right, we're seeing roughly 1 in 4 split, 1 out of every 5. Then you can kind of extrapolate out for the remaining unknowns, if there are any, and kind of get a good idea of what we're really looking at.
And the remaining lines that you want to do excavations?
Yeah, so we still have about 100 more that we want to do. We want to do in-home verifications for the remaining as well. We have about 500 still that we have that are unknown. If we can get inside the house, that will obviously give us a pretty good idea of what the service is, and then potholing obviously will help further that knowledge. And then any remaining from those 2 operations, we'll, like I said, kind of extrapolate out if we can what we think those remaining lines will be.
Thank you. Pleasantly surprised by these early numbers.
Anybody else? Great. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, we're done with that. We will move on to discussion item 6B, strategic planning meeting for fiscal 25-26. Ryan?
Yeah, so kind of wanted to just add this as a workshop item. It's obviously I've me as a new manager, and we've had council changes, and so for the last few years you've had a facilitator assist you with some kind of strategic planning for each fiscal year, and identifying some goals and priorities for staff and you as a council to work towards. So that process has involved a survey that goes out to the community, and we've used similar questions each year to kind of take a look at what those trend lines look like. Copy of that survey is in your meeting packet. Typically, it's involved a half to a full day of staff and the council all kind of meeting together and working with the facilitator on identifying various strengths that the city has or things that went well in the past year, reviewing progress towards last year's goals, and then kind of diving into various priorities that you would like to work on. And then each group kind of was, or there was, everybody's kind of broken into different groups to kind of help prioritize, things as well. So kind of wanted to touch base with the council to see, do you want to, stay with the same facilitator and same process? Would you like to do, work with a different facilitator? Would you like the mayor and I to, kind of do something in-house and work together on a similar process? Or do you, I know Councilmember Gardner's brought up, a process of, doing something greater and diving into a larger, strategic plan that would be longer term. So I turn it over to you to have that discussion.
Great. Well, should we maybe start with insights from what we've been doing the last couple of years, and then what we would envision going forward? Does that structure work? Yeah. Want to kick it off?
Well, just looking back, I feel like we tend to get a lot of good information from residents when they answer number 4, which is basically, are there any specific goals, projects, action items? This is where we get into the nitty gritty of specific things that, people suggest to us. And over the years, that's where we've, we saw some trends in items that people were interested in. So, the first couple items, talks about priorities. Well, that seems pretty easy. People, tend to look at infrastructure, different things. But as far as what they, tell us in the survey, that's the question that we seem to, get a lot of information from, and I find it valuable, as opposed to leading them with things, making it open-ended. I've just appreciated that part about that because we've gotten a lot of good feedback there. I don't know that we need to have a facilitator because I feel like we've gone through this process enough. There's enough people on who've gone through this process that I don't know that we need a facilitator per se, because I feel like we've all gone through it a little bit and we could kind of make it happen on our own, maybe. That's just my opinion.
I sort of, oh, go ahead, Joe.
Just a couple of questions. How many years have we done the survey?
Is it 3?
3 is my understanding, unless
I'm aware of having done,
And are there
Really?
consistent themes that seem to be, I mean, I know short-term rental was a big deal, right? But are there other consistent messages that we're getting in terms of?
parks and infrastructure,
Mhm.
STRs were big. Those are the things. I mean,
We've kind of,
cellular, I mean, one of the big drivers for all the work we did with Verizon, AT&T, and then the Starlink setup at Oval Beach was, that was a big piece of infrastructure. People really were frustrated by bandwidth during the summer months. So, I mean, that came through loud and clear. The STR issue also came through loud and clear.
Ryan, is that something we could make sure everybody has, are the survey results from the last couple of years? At least then you could see maybe,
Well, I think it'd be.
Some
good,
more
and
from that.
from
I
a
mean-
Process perspective, if we're seeing some of those themes that either have been addressed or haven't been addressed, maybe that becomes part of the survey to say, is this still a concern? Or
Yeah.
if the city has taken steps to address these concerns, have we done have we been successful in your mind? Those types of questions, right? Just to kind of check the pulse of the public to see if they think we're doing a good job.
that's a great idea. Yeah,
I sort of liked having, because she's done at least 2 or 3 of them. I can't remember now. I think actually 3. Marilyn does sort of know the city pretty well now. She's met most of us at one point or the other during these sessions. It is nice to sort of be able to sit back, as a member of council and not have to sort of facilitate, I mean, the mayor's role quite often is facilitating, but to give you a little bit of freedom to sort of reflect. And I thought, Marilyn, is sort of an independent person,
that's true.
provided a value. I don't think she was terribly expensive.
Ryan, do you remember? I feel like it was 2,500 or $3,000.
I'm not sure. I didn't,
That's the number that, something in that range, like sub 5,000, and sometimes one of the local businesses will host her and,
Yeah,
I can't remember so if somebody put her up for the night before.
let me see if I can find.
Okay. Always, yeah, okay. So yeah, we usually find somebody that helps out with that. And so it's fairly cost effective. And I think she does. Now that we've used her a few times, can kind of sort of know what we're doing. It was a big part of it, to your point, Lauren, is when we do the 4th question, which is open-ended, there is a lot of commonality, you like new emerging issues kind of, that we, without leading people, emerging issues come out, we're able to sort of, group those kind of responses together, and it does give us some good direction. But she was helpful also in us doing sort of that. And some of those exercises, I mean, I've been, to a lot of corporate stuff, but I've never really I don't really like facilitating. I'd rather participate,
Mhm.
so.
Russ, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you for asking, Mayor Anderson. Good afternoon, everybody. I have a bit of a different approach that I think we should take on this. I think it's time to hit the reset button, and particularly what I think with this city really needs to spend some time on is defining what our vision, mission, and values are. I've always struggled with not necessarily getting the good ideas on the table, but then looking back to say, okay, exactly what's this helping us achieve? Improving communications, obviously is one of them. Short-term rental issue is one of them. But I think we are in need of some time and we need some help actually getting some community involvement, not just a survey, but getting some people involved to say, okay, what exactly is the city's vision? What's our mission? What's our values? I've spent a little bit of time looking at other communities, Charlevoix, Grand Rapids, even Holland. And if you take a moment and go out and look at some of our neighboring communities, they've clearly done a different process than what we've done recently. And it's exciting to look at their plans because you can read it, you get excited, you get inspired, and you can actually drill down into the reports and actually see what are the action plans, what are the tasks, what are the timelines, what are the measurables to see that those are being achieved. I think we need to do that. I think we're putting the cart before the horse by asking people what they think the community should be doing without some leadership from us. I also think it's important for us to do this in a very formulated way to coincide with the budget year as well. We shouldn't have to look at this every year. We should only have to look at this every maybe 3 to 5 years. And also, I think this will provide some guidance for our city staff, in particular our manager, to be able to provide some cover when things come to his desk and to Superintendent DPW, the treasurer, the clerk, with ideas. This community is really active in terms of ideas, good ideas, but one of the struggles I think that the manager has, at least my conversations with him, is that there's so much that comes at us that we have to kind of figure out, okay, what are the priorities and how does this fit a strategic goal? And I think that does, and it will provide some cover for our staff to be able to say, here's what the city has decided it is focused on from a community aspect. It supports our vision, our mission, and our values. I think that's a process we have to go through. It's not a afternoon of 4 hours, and I think it involves Marilyn. I like Marilyn. She's a good facilitator for us. She does know the community. And maybe this is something that she can do for us from an engagement standpoint, but I think we should be looking at maybe even an RFP process to see and look at some of our other neighboring communities in terms of how they've approached it. This is probably a 3 to 4 month timeline of getting this done correctly. And I think now is the time for us to really stop and say, where do we need to go with this? And how do we do it best to support our community as well as respect everything that goes on in our community, as well as help our teams be focused on the things that we've decided as a community we want them to work on and spend money on. So I think the expense, I think Maryland was $3,500 if I remember right.
Yeah, I just pulled it up. So it was a $3,000 base charge and then she had some mileage on here and then the lodging. So it was
Yeah,
$3,300 total.
So small amount of money. I would be willing to support spending more money to get a different process in place and really see this done in a way that's going to be more visible. Also, I think more, I don't know. So that's where I am on this. I really think we need to step our game up on this. I'm excited by an opportunity to do this in a way that I think is more reflective of what our community really looks for from us. And it's a chance for the council to really kind of get some feedback from our staff and our community. But the vision, mission, and values, I think, are critically important for us to set first to kind of guide us.
Do we know if Douglas or the township have done anything similar?
I don't.
I think the township has. I don't know that the city of Douglas has.
Okay.
But I would encourage you to go out to some of these communities I mentioned, and there's some really good stuff out there. And I didn't bother to go further and to, make a call and say, hey, who helped you on this? But just looking at those documents and their websites and the way the information is presented, I mean, that's where Saugatuck should be aiming for that level. This is an aspirational goal. I think this is where it starts for us. That's my position on it.
Gregory or Chris?
I guess the one thing you brought up that I think I agree with is that I would think that this would be aligned with our, our budget, our fiscal. Before we put out our budget, we should know what our big responsibilities are. I think this is a little bit behind the ball because we've already set our budget. Now, I know we can vote to change that. something comes up. But I think maybe in the future or whatever, we should think about having this kind of a meeting before we set our budget. To keep it aligned with our fiscal year. I think that makes sense.
Chris, well, were you done? Gregory, were you done?
Yeah.
Okay. Chris?
I look at this a little bit differently, and kind of like Scott, we've done this numerous times over the years through the government things and that. For me, if we get the vision, that would be your overall plan that should last for more than a year, 2 years, whatever. But what I like is getting to the process, once you've identified the vision and the budget, then we determine what are the needs that we have right now. Because, and if you're looking back, it changes, and we have to be able to change with that. We had the flooding, we had the Phragmites, they were going to take over the world. I mean, we had Milliflora, all those kinds of things. I think if we keep the vision, what we see this town that we want it to be, and we agree on our values, then I think you have room to move around once the process is there. Again, it depends on the budget, but things can come in and change that. And I think we have to be flexible. So, I'm not saying I wouldn't do 3 or 4 months to get the value maybe thing, but the other part I think has to move a little quicker.
Yeah, and again, I put that timeline out there just as don't hold me to that. I think we need to spend a little bit more time than a 4-hour afternoon really getting to where we need to be. And we need a roadmap for where we want to go with this.
Yeah, okay, I guess, yes, I totally agree that, something big and meaty like mission, vision, values, like a, Saugatuck's version of a tri-community master plan, takes a lot of work. A lot of people, a lot of staff hours, a lot of meetings. I just sort of like the annual kind of year-end gut check with the community. I know we've talked about the survey being maybe too simple, but there is some beauty and simplicity in that folks will respond to it. The fourth question is nice, it's open-ended, so you can see emerging issues. I think it's fairly helpful at year end, just as kind of a, just a gut check on how we're doing. And I sort of did like having a more informal kind of meeting where we could meet with staff. And I know, Councilman Gardner's been interested in making sure that, staff, have clear kind of, job responsibilities or, things to be working on. And I always thought that was, the December meeting was useful in that regard too, where we could all be together and say, we're seeing this, and then, and then we'd be able to talk to, Ryan and Jamie and Scott and the rest of the team and say like, are you guys already working on this? Or, Scott, is the hot box coming next year to make them, patching the roads better and more efficient? And we or we would also go through some things that maybe once again, we need to communicate better on this because folks don't know that we've done this. So I sort of like it. I mean, I think they're two different things. I think that Russ is advocating has value, and I'm not opposed to it. I think this is much more of a quick hit year in review. Let's hit the ground running in 2025. Because mission, vision, values, that, I mean, I've been through a few of those exercises in the corporates realm, and it's
It's a lot.
so it's a big thing.
Yeah, I think this has been a good discussion, and I think a lot of what Scott and Chris have been saying. I do think there is, I mean, I spent my career helping companies develop strategic plans around stuff like this, which is great.
Why do
and-
we need a facilitator?
Well, there you go, there you go. What is sad about them often, and it is a good, I am all for doing some rigor around that. The nut of it, though, is for people to actually use them, because they tend to, I can't tell you how many sad binders I saw on people's bookshelves that never got picked up again. So I do think maybe some of that work, but at scaled so that one, the cost investment, because it is expensive. I mean, this would be like a short-term rental task force-like thing, I would think, in terms of the consultant and the time. And there is a lot to be said, I think, about the engagement around that. And that is one thing. I mean, I think they're two very different things. And then there's kind of the one pager. How do you put that on a page that then, council and staff and our commissions and boards, when needed, can pick up and look at, once a month, or just kind of see how we're doing. Ideally, it is tied to, all of this is tied to budget I know the city manager's, his contract is kind of tied to, our goals, the city's goals. And so it kind of becomes his goals, which then inform the staff goals and then obviously set the foundation for our budget. So one thing we might do is explore, okay, these are two kind of different nuts. How about if we come back, we ask Ryan to, figure out how to do a little bit more diligence on what would a reasonable view to some of this meatier thing look like and what might that cost and what resources might we need? But maybe in the interim, and maybe, and that we would want to have done by budget time. Maybe spend some time in January kind of doing something similar to kind of get us a focus that takes us through to mid-year. And then if we need to refresh that, we could kind of then move everything to mid-year as a possibility.
Yeah, and if I could just kind of maybe just help provide some context on like how staff, uses this process. And it may seem a little bit, and maybe it's because it's been in December that there's kind of this mindset that it's like helping us, for what's going to happen the next calendar year. But like we actually take, those priorities that were set last year. I mean, believe it or not, we start, the budget process and starting to look at that for the next year's, budget in February. Even though it's not approved until, late May or June. I mean, we're starting that process that early on. In fact, your charter has certain requirements that department heads, and they have to have their budget request to me by March. And so they wouldn't possibly know, what to request. Obviously they're requesting what they think they need to provide the level of service that you're asking for, but they also kind of need to know what some of the council's priorities are, so they can kind of work on getting some estimates and things like that to put in a budget request that we're ultimately bringing to you later on. So really the budget process starts with you setting your priorities. And so that all of your priorities that you set last year, even though we obviously were starting to, or, some of them were, carryovers or things that, are long-term goals and priorities. But, we took those items and included those within the budget. And so really the priorities that you set last December are the things that we're carrying through the end of this fiscal year. And this project that you're taking on and setting your priorities for next fiscal year really is going to inform us in developing the budget that doesn't start until July 1st. But that's how we utilize it. And then the other way that we really utilize it, because as Councilmember Gardner, mentioned that, there's, and we're all guilty of it, right? I come up with different new ideas throughout the year. The city clerk and our department heads do, you do as council members, and there's no shortage of great ideas that the community members have. But I think the priorities that the council sets and agrees upon, at least in a fiscal year, helps ground us to say, great idea. Let's have a discussion at your, when you're setting priorities for the year, and maybe set that as a priority, because that's going to take some time and resources. And we already kind of have our marching orders, what we need to be working on right now. And maybe we do work on that next, but that's a conversation to have kind of at that strategic planning meeting. So.
I like Joe's idea about maybe expanding our survey a little bit to, have a check on how we're doing. If, cell service was a major priority that we heard in past surveys, how do you feel about how things have improved? I'm sure we would get an earful about whether that's improved or not. But if there's some priorities that we've seen from themes in past surveys, let us know how we're doing on those. I feel like that would be a good addition to the survey, let alone, the way things have been set up in the past too.
I'm not opposed to adding questions as long as it's manageable and
Yeah.
we think we'll get the good uptake.
Right. You don't want it to be too long because they won't answer it.
Yeah, there's that. But I also like the idea that, at least some of these questions, some core questions remain the
Yeah.
same. So we can start to get some data points
Right.
over the years to see where we're going, to see if suddenly, there is a shift, that from past years. So I think that's helpful. You don't want to just throw it out and do a completely new
Right.
survey that says, oh, these are the new, priorities,
Right,
because
right.
you're getting different inputs.
Yep,
So-
I agree.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
So the only thing I would add to this is that the communities that I looked at for their strategic plans probably have staff, right, to do this. City of Holland, City of Grand Rapids, probably have staff that's their job. Charlevoix, don't know, didn't call and ask them. I know our city staff is overwhelmed with projects and work, and to add this to their to add this to their work is going to be difficult. I would support 100% having someone retained, contract, whatever it is, to assist with this. Seems like a simple thing to send out a survey, right? Super easy. Well, that's usually, I think, the clerk managing that. Out of respect for our staff and their primary responsibilities, this is important. And it should be done, but I think it should be done with some help. I just really think we should not have this on their plates. And they should be involved with it, of course, as should we, but I think this is a place where we spend a little bit of money, and I think it's a great investment also to help with the survey questions. I heard a number of criticisms about the last survey, about the questions themselves and the measurements and so forth, and I think we can learn from that. That's where I think professional help can come in, and again, I'm just talking out loud here. I'm talking, off the top of my head. I just think we don't want to put this back on staff at this point. I think we want to get some professional help with this, and there's people out there to do it. And I respect the mayor's comment about these going on the shelf, but I think there's ways to manage around that. And if you develop something that's of use, you can make it a regular agenda item, every workshop, for instance, or every committee, or every council meeting, or maybe once a month, whatever it is we review the progress on the measurables and the timelines and the things that have been set as action plans for the year. That's how you manage it. That's how you make sure it doesn't gather dust on the shelf. But that takes an action plan to do that. So I just think this is something where I'd be willing to support spending a little bit of money to have some professional help with this and take that off of the plates of our staff, who do a great job with it with the time that they have, but I think this is overwhelming. It can be
Yeah, I
overwhelming.
mean, I'd be curious what other municipalities that are similar to us, either by size or by economy, or, are they Gateway, Beach Town, whatever, who did they use? Because I'm not opposed to bringing in an independent consultant, maybe it's I don't know. I don't know the answer to this. I don't know if it's a quick conversation with a Maryland, saying like, have you had other clients that have done this?
Russ or Chris, have you guys been involved with the Tri-Community Master Plan when that was put together? And
I was one of the original creators of it.
so is it something similar that was done with the Tri-Community Master Plan?
Yeah, we had someone, I forget back when we did that, actually, who was involved. It was very much a community effort. I remember writing.
So I'm
quite a
just
bit.
wondering if it's a little redundant if we do it. I mean, because the Tri-Community Master Plan needs to be updated soon,
Right.
correct? So I'm just throw that out there. If we spend our money doing that
Right.
with the Tri-Community Master Plan, I feel like we might not need to do it.
This is why I asked if Douglas and the township
Yeah.
had done theirs yet, because you want to make sure these, well, hopefully, I mean, I think we all, well, personally, I think, the more cooperation, the more collaboration we can do, and the more alignment we can have with our two sister communities,
Yeah.
the better. So finding ways that, these plans, if they're going to do this, a similar exercises to us, if these all flange together, I mean, saw Jane Underwood this weekend, and the first thing she wanted to talk to me about is, why does the plowing have to stop from one side of Saugatuck through Douglas to the other side of Saugatuck? So,
And Park Street's dangerous.
and it is,
All right.
and she's right.
I got that call too.
She is right. And, we were having some early conversations, informally, I think, about, kind of shared services with some of our neighbors, and exploring more of that, more opportunities. We've done a bit already.
Ryan, when is the plan for the Tri-Community Master Plan to be updated?
Yeah, so I think 2026 is when the 10-year mark is.
But we would
Yeah, you would want to
that
start that
process
before. Yeah, that's a
next
pretty
year.
lengthy process with, a planning consultant or firm. And I think really it is a conversation that we really need to revisit with the township and and Douglas, only in that, so we had a tri-community, master plan. It relates to land use. Each of them since then has kind of gone the direction of creating like a land use master plan specific to their communities. It doesn't mean that they wouldn't be willing to continue to participate in a larger tri-community plan. But it does kind of, raise a question. Are they just going to kind of rely upon their individual land use plan going forward, or are they still interested in something larger? And then the question becomes for us, do we want something that's specific, more specific to us, and also still participate in a larger land use community master plan?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I understand the question is, are you saying that the tri-community master plan would be in support of this, or would be, I'm not sure I understand your question.
So I think they're two really meaty, chunky plans on a similar timeline. I mean, I would think we would need to get going on the tri-community master plan or our own land use plan next year. So just being thoughtful, is there overlap? Certainly in terms of engaging the community, being really strategic and thoughtful in how we engage them so they don't get confused, and we know what we want from them and how best to get that from them.
Okay. I do see them as two separate efforts. The tri-community by name is the tri-community plan. As the city manager said, it's mostly based around land use and some other objectives. This to me would be a city of Saugatuck strategic plan, which does work into some of these other, like we have the recreation plan, we have the tri-community plan that we have to, plan too. So it would be, working with that, but I still see that as being an independent effort from the tri-community work that has to be done in 26.
Yeah, I don't disagree. But I do see there's synergy and there's a way to be holistic about it. When I think about the master plan, it says, one of the tenets, I believe, is, maintaining kind of a small town rural character in the tri-community area. Well, obviously, so there's more emphasis on small town in Saugatuck, and there's more emphasis on rural in the township. So there are differences, but it is all part of a whole. So, I can see two separate efforts. I guess I'm thinking this, maybe coordination right out of the blocks, given that it should hopefully all be holistic with the tri-community piece as well.
Yeah, even if it's transparent, sort of the strategy of how we're doing it and timeline isn't, most people won't care about that, but I think we need to know what are the big chunks of work we want to get done? How do they intersect or not? And then sort of what are the paths we need to, because we don't want to trip over them.
Yeah, I mean, we have unique things. I mean, our infrastructure gets taxed heavily during the summer months when our population explodes. So, we have these issues that are unique to us, parking crowds that, are less so to the township, and Douglas has some unique things there. They have areas where they can develop. They're not as built out as we are. So there are differences for sure. Yeah.
And also, if we do go forward and spend the time to do it just with the vision for Saugatuck, then it's going to have to fit into the master plan coming from the other side.
Yep, for
Precisely.
sure.
So it might be, we're getting the cart before the horse a little
Yep.
bit on that. In terms of, and I want to apologize to Jane Underwood, I know Park Street is dangerous. There are things that, as Scott said, that are just for us, parking, the waterfront, those kinds of issues that I think it'd be nice to interact with our sisters cities. And, but for the most part, I just go back to, we need to have the process for us so we can react quickly when things come up.
Agreed. So, Ryan, what are your thoughts on next steps? Do you have a view on that?
Yeah, so I'm hearing that, it seems like, council's certainly interested in setting some priorities for us to kind of build a budget around for next fiscal year. And then I think I'm hearing there's some recognition that maybe there's some interest in spending some time on developing kind of a mission and a vision and kind of developing, that framework, but that's going to take some more time. And frankly, maybe it's a priority that you set for next fiscal year so we can, budget some dollars for somebody to kind of maybe help with that specific process. And so maybe it's a priority that you ultimately set or rank, and have that discussion. But maybe we plan on in January having kind of a strategic priority setting process similar to what we've done the last few years. Before that, we would send out a survey. What I hear is that that maybe that open-ended question maybe got you the most information that was helpful to you and kind of getting, some ideas of what was on, folks' minds. And I think all of you are, as elected officials, you all have your ear to the ground and you have constituents talking to you and and bringing issues to you that you obviously are bringing your thoughts and expertise to that meeting as well. So we can take that, the survey results. We'll check with Jamie and I will look, maybe we can set up the survey questions, the first three to be maybe similar to what we've done. And then and if it basically lets somebody kind of bow out at that point and still count what they've submitted, great. But then we'll have additional questions that we add on, maybe that we looked at what we said as priorities in past years and kind of check with the community to see, hey, do you feel like we've kind of addressed that adequately, or is it something that the council should, keep as a priority? So that way, if people want to be done with those first three and not do more, great. They want to keep going with the survey, then those questions are there for them to do that. As long as, I know most surveys will still count it if you drop out, but we can check on the settings on that.
Answer some questions, they still count.
Okay. So maybe that's a way to kind of get a win-win of some more information for those that are willing to do it, but get that first three questions to be similar and really get that open-ended question that you're, I think, most interested in kind of hearing what folks' idea are. As far as who facilitates that, I think, I've been through a number of these types of sessions with other communities. Obviously, Holly has a lot of, experience, it sounds like, with strategic planning and facilitating sessions. So I'm comfortable that, the mayor's willing that we could, tag team that. But if you feel like, you want to sit back, or the council would like a facilitator to do that, we can reach out to Marilyn, or I can look at other options too.
Yeah. To Councilmember Dean's point, I think it's important to have someone there that does this for us as opposed to having one of our members be responsible for that, because that takes away and it's diverting. It diverts
I
attention.
agree. And again, then it lets you participate more
So-
too.
And there's an art in, I've learned there is an art in asking questions and how those questions are structured if you're really trying to get to understand certain points.
And you don't want to have to,
Do this before.
excuse me, you don't want to have to try to decide, am I answering this as a facilitator, or am I answering
Right,
this as a-"
exactly. And I think too, it's people then, an outside person is disinterested and there's, I'm not trying to steer something. or-
Unbiased.
Yeah, unbiased, which
Yeah.
I think is helpful in terms of,
So I think I heard you say, if I'm not, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like you and the team found kind of that year-end kind of process useful to you. I mean, just kind of a year, I know, yeah, it's not for carved in stone for years and years, but it kind of gives you a feel for how things are going to go next year. Was it valuable?
I think it's extremely valuable to have the council kind of, one, to see the survey results from the community, but, one, to have council and staff, because we bring in the department heads and everybody for this too, so we get everybody to kind of together. But honestly, I mean, that list of priorities that you set for the year, I mean, that's what day to day I focus on is, what does the council want us to get done as a staff? Now, I wish I could do everything on the list and, you all know we have limited resources, but, we take that and that's what we focus on.
Yeah, and as a council member, it was important to hear from, like Scott Herbert, hearing what, he saw was a major need in his department, and hearing from the clerk about what, machines that were needed for the election, like those are things that we don't know off the top of our head. We hear from our constituents, but hearing from staff also helps us with prioritizing things.
Which is what I wanted to bring up. And I think it would be helpful before the meeting to maybe get a questionnaire or a survey out to staff. What's taking up most of your time? What are you working on most? Before we start adding more projects and things like that, let's find out where they're at first, we keep thinking, of course, we were talking about our citizens and surveying them, but I kind of would like to have that information before that meeting. That way I kind of know, I mean, I talk to Scott a lot, I talk to you guys a lot, throughout that. But I mean, I think that if you had the time to write something down or a survey, something like that, like, where is most of your time being spent? Do you feel that you have time for new projects? Things like that, would be helpful before going into it.
So there's pieces here. I just want to, once I got check this with the team in terms of scheduling. I mean, so we need the questionnaire, we need the survey to go out, we need to collect the survey, we need to be able to collate it. We need to see if everyone's in agreement that we can secure Maryland to host us or to facilitate us for a morning or something. We need to get make sure the SCA is available, because I think it is also nice to get everybody away from this sort of more formal place.
Mhm.
And, I mean, it's an open meeting, of course, but it's a little bit more, I
And
think.
have conversations.
it-
How about the invite?
well,
Conversations there.
Kidding, I'm kidding.
So I mean, I guess I would defer to staff and the mayor on what's feasible in terms of timing. I mean, it feels like Christmas is just come out of nowhere.
I think it's
Yeah.
January for sure.
Guys,
Oh, definitely January, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with Councilmember Muncy about getting some feedback from staff. I'm reluctant to put a survey out to the community quite yet until we have that discussion. I would want to see the questions before they go out. Again, I'm concerned about making sure they're valuable and making sure that they're, if it's open-ended, I think we get too much information. I think if we really want to do a gut check, as Councilmember Dean said, on how well we did, that's the question. How well do you think the city performed if you participated in the survey previously? You've got to put the information in front of them and say, how well do you think the city performed? And it's not it could be a 1 to 5. I don't know. That's where the survey experts come into play. That's the information I think is important from a data point measurement point, saying, okay, from last year to this year, did you get better? Did you get worse? Did you make any changes at all in terms of what you thought you were working on? So I don't want to rush the survey to the community. I think that's always been, it's been kind of my concern, is it seems a little rushed sometimes. We're looking for feedback really quickly, and then it's trying to, it's scrambling staff to collate it and put that all together. I think that's just a lot of burden for our staff, especially at a, busy time of the year. And
And I like the open-ended question too, but I think sometimes it just gets a little bit too jumbled. And I think we got like 65 responses last year. Maybe it was around 60, something like that. And I think we might get too caught up with saying, oh, where there were 10 people that said this on the open-ended. Well, it's only 65 out of, 900 people in this town. So although I do like it, I feel it's not, it's not so effective, as having direct questions that are answered directly. Like I said, I just feel like it kind of goes in this direction, that direction, so.
You do need to be very careful about your questions though, because I mean, just, it's like, basically, it's like you're doing polling. And I think we've learned watching the national races time and time again that people get polling wrong. Because, people, sometimes people have a feeling, and, they say things are terrible. The city's going to.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've done many surveys myself over the years, but.
You have to be careful. I mean, it's like, have you noticed, better cell reception, or is your connectivity better or worse? It's got to be a little bit more.
how about if we kind of take a hybrid approach, knowing that the first of the year is sneeze away? Aim to have something in January, get a survey out, maybe tweak last year's survey a little bit, but really focus on, because that would get us at least priorities similar to what we had this year. And then on a parallel path, start planning, because I do think having experts who can take the burden and who have survey expertise. So looking to next year, and maybe look at two things. So how do we do the annual priorities? Because I think we'll do that regardless of a bigger strategic plan, because we need to do the priorities. And what's the best way to get feedback on that? And can we lighten staff's load on that? And then in parallel, do some work on how might we get at the strategic planning issue.
sorry.
To, what are some approaches? What might that cost? What would the time frame? Then keeping in mind what the other things we have going on. Would something like that be?
Well, I think having the questions put together by a professional makes it, or if we want to go in a certain direction with questions. I mean, I know I've taken surveys where I've just wanted to blast through them.
Right.
And, if I keep giving a strong response one way or the other, the AI or whatever it is keeps testing me by asking me the question a different way to see if I'm consistently saying that, or if I'm just like, blazing through it, so there's definitely some science into making sure you get good outputs from survey questions.
Right, which is why I was thinking maybe we do put a focus on survey, but not for the January meeting we're doing, because I just don't know that that's practical. if, we can get that done. Russ?
Yeah, I like the hybrid approach, and this is the way I would look at it, is I would say we kind of bring this to a close, right? We revisit in some form or fashion what we did last year in terms of feedback that we got and the feedback from staff. Kind of have some closure to that, and then looking forward. I think that would bring some closure to the process, because there's been some value in the work that Maryland's done with us. But I think we need to up our game. And I think that would then be the next phase. I really think we need to, I think Saugatuck really deserves more.
Yeah, I agree with the getting some closure, because I feel like last year was a very productive year and we must have done something right.
Yeah, we did.
Because
We-
it was really productive. We got a lot done. And I think that came from feedback from the community and prioritizing. And I just feel like that's all we're trying to do is prioritizing projects. So I think we can still do that in January. And
Cool.
still look ahead to something greater if that's what we decide to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Yeah.
it's, for the first 3 years, we did something that we hadn't done before. So, and I think it has helped. I think it has helped. That's what I'm hearing from staff, that it has helped. So, yeah, I don't mind taking it bigger, taking it to the next logical step, which is something much more ambitious, but I think, let's not just blow it up. Let's use it, because, it could take months, months and months. So let's.
Yeah, and I think we need more thought on what that's gonna look like.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Anything else? Brian?
Conversation, thank you.
Yeah, so we'll send you the past surveys, results. I'll see if I can get some, maybe updated survey questions done for your next workshop, so you can take a look. And then we could work on getting a survey out after that, and I'll see what Maryland's availability is in, January. We'll probably check with you on all of your availability as well, to kind of see if there's a specific day, that would work. If it is a pretty, lengthy day, we'll check with the SCA, on a room that would be available. And then you can have some further discussions at your priority setting, if you want to set a greater strategic plan as a priority, for us to budget towards and work towards in that next.
Yeah, I would
fiscal
also
year.
offer Saugatuck Yacht Clubhouse as an alternative. If the
Yeah, we did
FCA
that one year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay,
first time,
that's
that
good
was-
to know. So, okay.
We used
Yeah,
that
cool.
once before, yeah. That's
a little
true.
bigger space, but anyway,
Okay,
that'd be your call. Just let me know if you want to go that route.
we'll check it out. Yeah.
Good point.
Awesome.
All right.
Ready?
Yeah.
Is that good?
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry, real quick.
Oh.
And the survey, just one, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, fine.
The survey, the one question is, are you a resident, or not, or are you a business owner? I'll even help. I'll pass them out if you want me to, but it would be nice if we, could provide that survey to all of our business owners. I know we don't have all of their emails yet and things like that, but you get them out to our business owners as well.
You probably have a lot of their emails with the business license.
Oh, that's right.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
awesome.
So we can definitely, though, push that out, make sure that they
Make sure that
specifically
they're
get it in
blasted
case they're
with
not
it
on the
as well.
email list.
Oh,
Yeah,
they
we can
would be
check
in
that.
it. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
also, there are people in this community, I know of two of them that live across the street from me that are not online at all, and have very good ideas and are very interested in what this council does and ask me all the time to give them updates, but they're not online. So we have to make, and I'm sure they're not the only ones. We have to make sure we get to those folks. And that is could very well be me, which I've done, walk up and give them the information, as my aunt and uncle across the street.
Yep.
And give them the information, but they appreciate that outreach.
Uh-huh.
We
There,
don't do that enough.
there are a lot of residents that I know that don't, they're not professional. They don't open their emails every morning. Even young people, not just older people, that just aren't email savvy. We're all used to it because we've all had jobs where that's the first thing we all do in the morning is look at our emails. But a lot of people don't do that. Now, a lot of residents don't do that.
Yeah, well, with the short-term rental survey and the waterfront surveys, we put notice in the paper that we had surveys, like paper copies available here at City Hall, where
Oh,
we can do that, and we did print some for some folks.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good idea.
so we can.
Okay, oh, cool.
Great.
Good, good.
Okay, good.
So sorry if I called on my aunt and uncle, but they are definitely not online. So
Yeah.
Well, you can drop,
That's true,
Jamie will
but-
give you some to drop off.
Yeah.
All right.
That's a good point.
Anything else? Okay, amendment to Coughlin Park policy.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. This should be pretty short. So Coughlin Park gazebo, we rent out, as you know, for weddings or, picnics, family events. The majority of the requests are weddings. Our policy states that you can't apply for a quote unquote permit or to use the park until the beginning of the year. Well, I've handled these for the last 2 summers, and I feel like it's a disservice because I reject a lot of people throughout the year that are planning their weddings a year ahead. And wedding planning doesn't happen in 3 months. So if we're opening up in January, these people, the first thing in wedding planning is the venues, right? So I feel like it's a disservice. This is not a huge revenue. Okay, last year was $4,000. The year before that, $2,500. 3,000 prior and 2,500. So you average between 25 and 4,000. So not a big revenue, but I feel like customer service standpoint, we are turning people away. I turn people away that are trying to plan their receptions at the SCA and they want to reserve the park, but I say, sorry. Try on January 1st, right? But they're trying to do this in May or June of the prior year, or even right now. I just told a girl in September, I told one in October, and at this point, I just feel like it's a disservice that I have to make these people wait to January. Since we're going into 2025 season, they already have to follow this policy, and start applying in January. But for the 2026 season, I would like to open it up and see if, we don't have a time restraint, if we have more people rent it and more people satisfied. I hate turning people away. And it's open, so it's not used.
Great.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I do hold and black out for our major events such as Venetian, 4th of July, and the race. And outside of that, it's first come, first serve, but many of these people already have their plans January 1st. So we average about 5 to 8 weddings right now.
Mhm.
But I do turn a lot of people away. I just think it's a disservice. And I'd like to just try it maybe for a year and see if we open it up with no time restraint. So.
I think it's a no-brainer. I'm already booking weddings as a florist for September. And yeah, you've got a really good point about that. Is there a deposit policy?
It is, it's $1,000, a $500 deposit once the wedding is done. And if the park is put back the way it was before, they get their $500 back. So it's $500 fee, $500 deposit.
Okay, so if something happens and tragedy happens or something, or whatever, they get in a fight and they're not getting married, and they cancel, do they get that full amount back?
Mm-mm.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
No, there's
So
no refund.
we keep the 500, but then of course you give them their
Yeah.
their deposit.
Yeah.
back.
I haven't had anyone cancel.
Right.
It's always worked out smooth. I haven't had anyone not turn the park, like everyone's kept the park nice. It's really smooth going.
Yeah,
It's just, I feel like I'm turning too many people away.
yeah, we've done flowers at those weddings.
Yeah.
before, so.
Yeah.
I piggyback on what Gregory said. Many times people will go in and book something and then they might get a better deal. So I just want to make sure that if they put the 500 down and they cancel, they don't get the 500 back. Is that correct?
Right. They send us 1,000 and there's no refund policy.
I see.
Yep.
So they send you the 1,000 up front.
Yep. And that secures the date.
Okay.
I don't secure the date until I receive the money.
Okay. And then at the end, if the place is cleaned up and good, they get 500 back.
Correct.
Okay.
We keep the other 5.
Russ?
Yeah, question. I'm married, but let's say I was thinking of getting married in 2029.
Jen.
I thought that too.
How far out can I go? How far out will you
Well,
go?
that's a good point. Maybe we put a timeline and maybe it's not, you can't reserve until the upcoming year. Maybe it's within, a time frame. I just think it needs to be more lenient.
Yeah, I don't disagree with the suggestion. I just don't think we want to have people saying, well, I'm going to reserve this for
I agree.
for 2030
Yeah.
or something like that.
That's a good point.
I think 2 years would be good.
What's your experience been with with people making flower orders? A year in advance?
Yeah,
2
a year in
years?
advance. Like I said, I'm already booking now for late summer weddings, and a year in advance. I think 2 years would be plenty. I think 3 years is too long. I think 2 years would be plenty.
When does the
Yeah, I agree
SCA
with that.
open up?
Their reservations, I'm not sure, I'd not check.
Anything else?
Would your suggestion be then to include in the motion 2 years?
Mhm.
I think
That
2
work for
years is
everybody?
plenty.
I think
All
that's,
right.
Yeah.
I think that seems,
I think that's
based on your
Yeah, I mean,
experience.
the only thing I can think of is we're raising, if we ever come to a point in time where we think we should be raising the fees,
Mhm.
you've already booked them out, you're gonna leave some on the table, but for 2 years, it's probably immaterial, so.
Jamie, have you contacted any other communities to see how they handle their reservations for similar types of events?
No.
I'd be curious to see if maybe we
Mm-mm,
can use that as kind of a best practice. I don't know.
I haven't yet. Mm-mm.
But I mean, like we do with our prices at the flower shop, if you are to raise prices, that would just, say I booked a wedding for 2026 today. I would pay that $1,000. If we made that change, then anybody else that booked in 2026 from that point, would pay the higher amount. They wouldn't be held to that, what the other person had paid. So I don't think that would affect anything.
Prices may change.
Yeah, prices
Mhm,
can
yeah.
change,
I'll tell you, Lisa and I, we booked the place in, through the city of Norton Shores in a new venue they have on Mona Lake. And, yeah, if we had to wait until January, Lisa would be,
That would be
we both would be very
challenging.
stressed out, right? And then have to fight maybe for a particular date. And,
Yeah.
so, and their requirements, they had a pretty lengthy contract. Were very similar to what we have.
And I run into that when they're like, well, I'm trying to book this place. Like, I need to book them together. I want to be in your town. I want to be in a, like, I
Like,
have
and
these
that makes all sorts of
conversations. I
sense.
completely
Yeah.
Yeah.
understand, but
Yeah.
I just, yeah.
No, that's great, Jamie.
Yeah, good for flagging that.
Yeah.
Oh, any,
So we could change that for Monday, just add 2 years to the motion, right? 2 year limit or.
Sounds reasonable.
will do. Thank you.
good, okay, last item is quorum check for December 23rd regular meeting.
Yeah, so your charter requires that you have 2 regular meetings. So I know the 23rd is right before some holidays. So I wanted to see, are we going to have a quorum on the 23rd, or do we need to maybe look at another date? The other idea that I had, if we don't have a quorum on the 23rd, is to look at maybe doing like like we did recently, where you have your workshop on the 18th and then a regular meeting immediately following.
I'll be here on the 23rd.
Okay.
So will I.
Yeah, I'm available.
I'm available.
Me too.
There's a quorum.
I'll
All right.
be home for the holidays.
All right, well,
Staff around?
at least I am. So we'll
Okay.
make sure you're.
Okay,
Yep.
all right, well, that was easy.
All right.
Okay, that takes us to public comment on anything anyone wishes to address. Anyone online have anything they want to share? All right, that was easy. No, was there correspondence? I don't think so. Nope. Okay, council comments. I'm gonna kind of get a little wild and crazy since the people in the end always have to say, oh, I've got to start. I think we could maybe mix it up and like, maybe we could start with Gregory and go around.
Sure, that sounds
I'm gonna be a little wild.
But get the talkative one out of the way. At our last council meeting, councilperson Lawrence Stanton brought up the fact about lights on Water Street. I want to keep that in conversation. I've had another conversation with another business owner that would really like to see that. And maybe we can find some kind of fundraising opportunity, that I'd be more than willing to help and volunteer, help put on or whatever, where we can, maybe raise funds to get more lights out there on Water Street. But maybe that's something we can talk about at our priority meeting. I've been hearing that for 20 years, how Water Street doesn't get the lights. And it would be really nice if we could make a concerted effort next year to get some lights on Water Street. Yeah. Other than that, don't forget the parade. Ryan, are you gonna be in the dump truck? Are you coming to the
I'm gonna
parade?
be there.
Good. And,
Paid offer, but the dump truck's calling my name.
I hope to see everybody there on, Saturday, and, I hope we all have a fun time.
Thanks.
Nothing tonight. I will say the Wildlife Committee is meeting at 6 over in Douglas. So we'll be talking about deer with the DNR subject matter expert at 6 PM tonight over in Douglas.
Great, great. I have nothing else to add. I'll look forward to the parade on Saturday, 11 o'clock. Hope everybody can make it. And I hope the weather's nice. But yeah,
Yeah.
nothing further though.
No comment other than I want to thank Santa's Little Helper for the radios for the elves on Friday. The
job.
star lighting went well and appreciate the effort. Thanks.
No comment.
Lighting ceremony went great, so thank you.
Nice.
You guys did a great job up there, and yes, the timing of the star was fantastic. And for every Water Street lights, absolutely, I've heard that from a number of people as well, and I've even had several volunteers saying they'd either help or chip money in if that's what it takes, so feel free to reach out.
Yeah, and just because it maybe come up a couple of times, Mayor, Scott and I have discussed this, and we're at the end of our current 3-year agreement with CHIPS. And so Scott's going to be kind of walking different parts of the city with CHIPS and kind of creating kind of a la carte option of, we want to add on this area, this is how much it's going to cost. We want to add on this area, this is how much it's going to cost. And so we'll have all of that for you. Yep.
Good.
Just a quick comment. I worked with Nick for 3 years on setting up we went through it tree by tree.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if you need any advice.
Good to know. Good to know. We might take you up on that. So thank you.
Great. Well, nothing from me other than I love a good dump truck. So, I was sorry to miss, trying to finagle a ride in the snow plows, being out of town for the snow, but well, great.
Well, there's more tonight.
Yeah, that's
No,
true.
let's hope
That's true.
not.
Happened. That is an offer to all of council. If you have an interest in hopping in, a truck and seeing what it's like from our DPW's perspective and plowing snow, we can get you set up for a ride along.
Yeah, that was part of our orientation, which was great.
They're fun.
Okay, is there a motion to it?
No, that you.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, meeting adjourned. Thanks.